robbery, smuggling, extortion, and even oil revenues. The financial dealings of a terror organization. This week, Marketplace Middle East takes an in-depth look at the tangled web of funding lining the pockets of ISIS and global plans to stop it. Welcome to this special edition of CNN Marketplace Middle East, this week from Manama in Bahrain. This tiny Gulf state played host to representatives from over 30 countries to tackle a very big and pressing issue, and that is the financing of ISIS. From fundraising to oil production and a lot more, they're facing a very different and difficult foe. As airstrikes continue to rain down on ISIS strongholds, 30 countries representing half the coalition in the fight against the group explored better ways to choke off terror financing. The struggle to date, officials admit, has been keeping pace with the organization's multi-pronged financial strategy. Is this a much different challenge than what we've been seeing before in the region?
It's not a different enemy. It's the same enemy that we've seen everywhere, but they have gained more experience.
ISIS quickly built out its base in eastern Syria and western Iraq by initially tapping wealthy regional Sunni sympathizers.
They have managed to get into new areas and new fields of taking control of territories, taking control of oil fields, establishing rackets, ransoms everywhere.
Intense airstrikes have curbed the group's oil output. U.S. officials say it is less than a third of the level back in June, when it was earning nearly $3 million a day. This is not a new effort. In fact, legislation dates back since the 9/11 attacks. Experts within the roundtable suggest it was pressure from the United States and the international organizations to get the Middle Eastern states to push ahead with laws. Now they suggest there's a gap between what's been put on the books and what's actually being enforced. UN Security Council resolutions have been expanded to force member states to step up international cooperation.
Once you have that political commitments, the second level and more important is that these institutions sometimes, for lack of capability and lack of capacity, experience, expertise, cannot perform and use these tools efficiently.
By the region's own measurement, 2 Middle East countries remain on the blacklist for non-cooperation, Iran and Algeria. On the gray list, meaning improvements are still needed, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and Kuwait. Turkey came off the list in October, and Qatar back in 2010. Washington has not been shy naming countries. The U.S. head of the financial terrorism effort, David Cohen, recently singled out Qatar and Kuwait for not stepping up international cooperation. A sense of urgency emerged in the language of this meeting's final declaration, but it leaves many wondering if the effort is too little, too late. Bahrain's been wanting to take the lead on the fight against terror financing, and in fact, it is the regional headquarters for the task force. But it's had its own set of problems over the last few years with dissident protests. I had a chance to tackle both those issues with the central bank governor, Rasheed Almaraj.
I haven't seen any kind of evidence about the magnitude of money that is allegedly going out of this region. I mean, there is a lot of talk, but there is no evidence as such. In Bahrain, and I believe in the rest of the Gulf, there has been a very strict rules and regulation when it comes to transfer of funds outside of this region.
So the numbers that people have talked about of $200 million over the last 18 months coming from Gulf families, you don't buy this number? Is that what you're suggesting?
I would dispute this because we have no evidence. I mean, people allegedly saying, you know, there is money going from this region, but for us in Bahrain, we have not seen any money going out to any organization outside Bahrain that is not legitimate. And Bahrain has been on the forefront of introducing laws and measures and regulations in order to ensure that our financial system is clean from this tainted money.
Any arrests? Anybody taken to trial for money laundering or financial terrorism in Bahrain themselves? Can you actually point and say, we did this?
We did. Recently, we have indicted a company that is involved in money laundering. The company went to trial, and there was a verdict. And we monitor this continuously.
How do you clean up the charitable organizations that perhaps have the right intention initially, but the money gets funneled into a terrorist organization in the end. There's some that are still sympathetic to the Sunni cause, as you know.
Look, there is a very comprehensive rules and regulation and processes in Bahrain on how to collect and distribute funds locally and outside Bahrain. So it is not that things will just flow freely out of without any kind of inspection and oversight from
You're suggesting that the tracing all the way to the ground, all the way to the very end recipient.
Through the financial organization, there is absolutely no way that any fund, any illegitimate fund can go out of this system.
Governor, what do you say to the critics that suggest not enough crackdown on those supporting the Sunni cause in Bahrain, but plenty of crackdown on the dissidents that we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years? That's a very constant legal procedure, and less so when it comes to those supporting the Sunni cause.
No, I don't agree to this kind of analogy. We apply the laws universally with no prejudice against anyone. Anybody who violates the law of the land will have to face the court.
Does it surprise you now, almost 2 years into the ISIS campaign, how sophisticated the financial network really is, and it almost caught the global community flat-footed, if you will, off guard, not ready for the oil trading, the extortion, the ability to trade antiquities? They've funded quite well.
It's still early to judge. They have been very successful in their efforts because as the international community come together and to fight them militarily and put all the restriction on dealing with them, that will be an effective way. And it's yet to be seen what the result.
Central banker Rasheed Almaraj and some of the real challenges facing Bahrain today and the effort to cut off ISIS funding. Up next on Marketplace Middle East, we go to Dubai and the marking of the 10th anniversary of the Dubai International Financial Center. We'll take a look at some of the ups and downs when we come back.